Assalamu alaikum and welcome to this episode of the Believers Early Careers podcast. Let's get straight into it. So we're speaking to Mohammad Taher, aka Moti, the airport guy. He's been on the Heathrow graduate engineer scheme, and he's got an amazing ability to communicate confidently and effectively. He's a motivational speaker. Like, he's developed himself to get to that level, and we talk about how he's gotten to that level and where he was before, being a really shy, awkward person, to where he is now, and how you can also, take inspiration from that. We'll talk a bit more about his career at Heathrow, where it's like, and also a bit about the assessment stage and all that kind of stuff. But to be fair, he's got some amazing social media channels, his Instagram and TikTok, which I'll put some details in below in the description. Like, he brings to life what goes on in Heathrow, like massive operational scale, the different things that goes on. He brings it to life through those channels, through those videos. And we kind of complement that. We build on that in this episode to talk a bit more about that. But again, more about his philosophy, how he's developed, where that's come from, where that confidence come from, and how can we develop that. And just to put into context, his TikTok, he's got 58.5k followers. I've got about 7 on TikTok. So yeah, if you also want to support me, please do share, subscribe, and like this video. But check it out. I mean, it's amazing, and he's like really passionate about his career in the engineering field and bringing his insight and what he's gained, his skills, his privilege, to people like us that don't get that opportunity, or people that don't normally get to see that level of insight, or get to see what really goes on. So check out this episode. It's a really inspiring one, and also definitely check out his channels and follow him, because his content is really good. I could probably learn a thing or two from it. Welcome, Mohammad Taher, to the Believers Early Careers podcast. I've not done this for a while, but I'm glad I've got you on, man. You were one that I've been looking at for a while, and I've really wanted to get your story on this episode.
Thank you so much, Rahel. I appreciate it, and I'm excited. I'm excited for the conversation. It's going to be a good one.
So tell me about your... I actually got a few questions before we even get to the whole thing. So I know you work in Heathrow, which... Is it the biggest airport in the world?
It is one of the busiest. It's not the biggest, but it's definitely up there in top 3 busiest airports in the world.
But in terms of the operations of it, like when I've been looking at your profile and the videos, and I actually reflect on going to the airport, like there's so much that goes on operationally, like from security to baggage to the plane to the passenger to the shops to like the runway. It is a massive operation, and I'm honestly a big fan of how you've literally brought it to life through your social media channels. And one of the interesting things I like is how you've used your name on your Instagram handle and your different channels. Tell me about that.
So my name is Mohammad Taher, right? But my friends call me Moti, Mo, and then T, just to simplify it. So my name, I go by Moti. And what was funny is I've always think very deeply and philosophically about things. And then once I was sat in a group session when I first joined Heathrow Airport, and our manager, instead of him doing the session, he called me up because I had been very vocal and very philosophical at the time. He was like, "Mo, you run this session," and the session was what makes a good leader. And one of the girls was like, "They need to be motivational," and I was like, you're onto something. So when I created my channels, rather than just making anything else, I now want to be a motivational speaker myself. So it became motivate, and it clicks in nicely. So that's where the handle sort of came from.
Yeah, and I like the caption. Was it Moti by name and then Moti by motivating by nature?
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
That was a wicked post, and it was nice to see like your bit of your story as well, which we're going to get into. And the other burning question I have is, one thing I notice is when I go to airports and I see like all the different vehicles and equipment they have, like the design always looks really weird to me. Like it's something about it. It just doesn't look. I don't know what it is. Is it designed by engineers? 'Cause I know it looks really practical. Everything that's made and designed.
Which vehicles? Which ones are you talking
It's
about?
like, for example, the like every airport I go to, you know, the ones that take the luggage around, or the ones that have that
Yeah.
the kind of the what do you call it? The thing that moves the luggage from the
Mhm.
airport to, was it the carousel basically?
Plane.
That
Yeah,
has that.
yeah,
It's like it looks super practical, but then it looks like it was definitely made by engineers, but it's probably also very
yeah.
much designed by engineers, and then doesn't have like the kind of the normal commercial car design on it. Is that kind of like
Yeah,
a,
yeah,
is
yeah.
that how it's done?
It wasn't an off the shelf product that they just bought to the airport. The beauty of an airport is, like you said when you mentioned earlier about the complexity of it, of the operations, is that you need very specific vehicles to do very specific things. Like the vehicles that push back an aircraft, for example, the way they're designed is very different, and the way they even steer, like they steer from the back, for example, rather than the front. All these little quirks that you have at an airport, it's such a unique environment that the beauty of it though is it's replicated around the world, but you won't see it anywhere other than environments. All the vehicles that you're going to see are specifically designed for specific tasks at the airport.
No, we're gonna.
Which one stands out to you? Which one's your favorite?
I can't remember which one it was. I think it was just that one. I was like, this is really unique and really weird looking at the same time. And I was like, and even the other stuff, like I can't, there's other stuff as well, which I can't. Actually, next time I make a list and then I'll tell you exactly what it is. But I was just looking at even like the way that the coach is designed, like it's all like all standing, and even the way that the sort of train is designed, all like kind of the way it's all done. You could tell it's definitely like got
Mm,
the engineer's practicality touch on it. It's
100%. Yeah,
intriguing. Yeah,
absolutely.
like I had that feeling. I
Absolutely.
thought, yeah, maybe this is why it's not made to look aesthetically pleasing. It's made to deliver its purpose and its job. And
You know what's really interesting about you saying that is, me personally as an engineer, I don't care about how aesthetically pleasing things look. I just care about how practical they are. And I have a cousin who is a UX designer, so he's all about the design. His whole thing is design, design, design. And for me, when we're together, I'm just like, bro, like that's not practical. He's like, yeah, but look at the design. I'm like, yeah, but it's not functional. Like it doesn't matter how good it looks if it doesn't serve its purpose. So me and him always have like butt heads about stuff like this.
now we know why. So that's my burning urgent query, urgent question answered. But we're gonna get into now a bit about yourself. So you've been on the Heathrow graduate program, um,
That's right, yeah.
and you're currently, you would say, an aerospace engineer. Is that right?
So my official term is the system specialist for the aerodrome. That's the what the LinkedIn says. That's what it says on my payroll. The system specialist for the aerodrome. But it is basically the an engineer who looks after the airport. But yeah, I studied aerospace engineering at university. I studied that at Brunel University, graduated back in 2018. Then I joined the engineering graduate program at Heathrow Airport. And the beauty of the graduate program, as you probably know, is that it's a rotational program. And the beauty of having a rotational program at Heathrow Airport is, like you mentioned, there's so many different pieces of the puzzle, and each one is so vastly different and unique. Having a chance to experience that, I mean, I would go from 1 month being deep in the baggage system, redesigning elements of the baggage system, and a month later, I'm standing on the runway in the middle of the night looking at how we refurbish our lights. And a month after that, I'm standing on the roof of Terminal 2, looking at our boiler systems and looking at how we make sure that the cold and hot water reaches everywhere inside the terminal. And a week after that, I'd be underground in Terminal 5, looking at the train systems and how the trains go from one terminal to the other and how we maintain those trains. And then 3 months later, I'm in a sewage in the sewage system somewhere deep outside in the field, and I'm on a lake on a boat, like looking at how we circulate the water around and make sure that the water stays fresh, so that, you know what I mean. So it's like within a 2 year period, I went from this to that, and I just got to see so many different elements of one place. You don't get that anywhere else, and that's the beauty of Heathrow Airport. They call it a mini city, and the graduate program takes you around that whole mini city.
Yeah, yeah. There's so much, and the fact that you're exposed to different things, it kind of gets you out of
Yeah,
the comfort zone more, and it kind of teaches you different stuff, doesn't it? And I think that's like
100%.
one of the beauties of that scheme. But let's go back further because we sort of touched upon it just before we started recording, and it was that you have this amazing superpower that we call confidence, and the ability to speak, the ability to engage audiences. But what we sort of know is that stuff like that, people from the outside might think this has always been there by nature, but sometimes, or in most cases, it's something that's learned and something that's come from somewhere. But let's go back to like from where you were, like in college. Like what from there, what led you to this, and what was your sort of development journey to where you are today? Talk me through that, man.
Absolutely. So, I mean, in college, if we go a step before that, I went to a private Islamic school before college. So it was boys only Islamic school throughout my whole year 7 to year 11. I've never spoken to a female like ever at all, right? So when it came to going to college and I went into a mixed college, my confidence levels were so low. The first time I ever conversated with a female, I couldn't even look her in the eyes. I was staring at the ground throughout the whole 30-minute conversation. I didn't look at her once. I was staring at the ground. That's how low my confidence levels were. And it wasn't because she was a female only, but it was just that I was so like kind of in a bubble. And my confidence was so low. I was so insecure about myself and about everything to do with me. I would do anything just to be able to make friends and stuff like that. And I was very, very insecure. Um, but it all started to really change afterwards when I joined university. Um, what really ended up happening was I joined the American football team, and I was very much an outsider, again very insecure and stuff. But there was certain individuals within the American football team that would just, in the group environment, they would act absolutely foolish, right? And you'd observe them acting completely foolish, but they do it with such confidence that the people around would accept them as the way they are, and they'd embrace them as that. And you think to yourself, this person's acting an absolute fool, but everyone is just accepting them. And the only reason they're doing that is because they're doing it with confidence. And that sent me on a spiral. I'm like, I don't even put myself out there. And I don't get accepted. And I have zero confidence. And I just really started to question, like, why am I like this? And during that journey as well, I started to do things where I really put myself outside my comfort zone, like both physically, mentally. I mean, I signed up for 2 triathlons back to back just to put myself outside my comfort zone. I went through a period where I do anything I can to put myself outside my comfort zone. And that really started to reshape my confidence and like resculpt myself as an individual. I started to read books about how to win friends and influence people. That's a very influential book in my life about how important it is to build connections. That made me realize that confidence is a very important part of that. I started to any opportunities I'd get to speak in front of a crowd, to be in a society and speak up. I'd take them, even though I was shivering and my knees would be shaking and all this stuff. I would take those little steps into the unknown to try and build that confidence. And it was only until later in life, probably around my third year of university, where I really started to just accept myself. And the moment I started to have that self-acceptance was when the confidence came. And when the confidence came, I started to be able to speak my piece and actually to speak what's on my mind. Because there was always a filter between what was on my mind and what I'd say, because I wasn't confident enough to let people know what's in my mind. I wasn't willing to be vulnerable. I wasn't willing to let people know what's happening inside my brain. But the moment the confidence came through, I would very happily tell people the way I think about the world. And when I started to do that, people really start to resonate with it. And I realized that maybe I've created like a little talent here of being able to speak and articulate and create an image in somebody's mind. And I thought to myself, you know what, there might be something here. So let me try and pursue it. Let me put some effort into actually doing it, because when I speak, I feel like I'm in my flow state. And I thought, you know what, let's go for this. Let's actually try and make something out of this. And that's where the journey began. But it all started from actually, gaining that self-confidence, allowing yourself to articulate what's going through your mind. And then when I did that, I realized that there may be something there that I could pursue long term as even a career, to speak as a living. So that's sort of where my journey began. And now, alhamdulillah, I speak at conferences at the Excel Arena. Last weekend, I was speaking there and I was representing engineering within the aviation industry. So it was a whole panel of people, pilots, vice president of Virgin Atlantic. You had people from all sorts of walks of life in the aviation industry. And I was there speaking, representing engineering on this conference. So alhamdulillah, I've been getting a lot of opportunities, and it's just about taking them, putting yourself out there. And that process gets you even better.
Yeah, and there's powerful concepts there, and I think one that you mentioned, which I think is perhaps because of the variety of pressures that young people face, is that self-acceptance and
Mm.
trying to like really just accept who you are, basically accept your imperfections, accept your strengths, accept your weaknesses. Like,
Mm.
how important would you emphasize the like self-accepting or accepting who you are in order to kind of unlock your potential?
Here's how you can imagine it. I like to think in metaphors. And if you wanted to build a skyscraper, step one isn't to start laying bricks. Step one is to dig a hole and create a foundation. In my opinion, self acceptance is that foundation. Because when you start to build that skyscraper and you want to go forward in life, you need something to fall back on where there's that underlying confidence of who you are and what you stand for and what your values are. And just that understanding that, you know what, this is who I am. And if they were willing to accept it, then that's fine. Because think of it like this: the moment you start to put yourself out there and you want to build something, you're gonna have people who are gonna question you. And if the moment they question you, you crumble, it's because your foundation wasn't strong enough to uphold the thing you were trying to build. So step one is to dig deep into your soul and metaphorically, yeah, and create that foundation where you say, you know what, this is who I am. This is what Allah has given me. This is what I bring to the world. And then you go from there and you build up from there. But it also comes down to the fact that a lot of people don't think they're enough. They think that what they have isn't enough. And they come to that conclusion because they look outside and they look at other people in the world and they say, oh, but look at him, look at her. You know, they're only 25, I'm 25, and, clearly I'm a failure because look at them, they have all this other stuff. And then they start to compare themselves to others, and that removes that element of self acceptance because now you don't want to accept the fact that you haven't made it at the same age as somebody else. But actually, if you remove that and you just look at your own life in its own time scale, and you don't try and compare yourself to other people. I mean, I have a little example about this. When I joined the graduate program, they paired us up as graduates, and there was me and this girl who were in Terminal 2. And this girl, I mean, she was very proactive. She was booking in meetings with senior managers, and as a graduate, you have the option to do that. So, she was constantly busy. Her diary was always full, completely full of meetings and catch ups and doing stuff. And I remember sitting there for like 2 days straight, where I'd come into work and I was so like insecure, and I was so, again, like I was so sort of unaware of myself, and that self acceptance that I hadn't accepted it, is that I would come into work and I'd just check her diary constantly. I'd see what she's doing. And like I would live in a state of just looking at her journey and think, oh my God, like, how is she doing that? Why is she doing that? And I wasn't even looking at what I'm doing. It wasn't even making me do something for myself. I was just looking at herself, at her journey. And I realized that I remember promising myself never to look at her diary again. And if I want to do anything, I need to stop booking stuff into my own diary. And that was where my life changed, where I accepted that, you know what, I need to sort my own life out. I need to sort my own stuff out before I look outside. Because if I look outside, I'm never going to give myself the chance to do my own stuff. So I promised myself never to look at her own diary, and I had to accept my own journey and where I stand right now. And that was building that foundation so that then I can start building the bricks on top of that.
It's powerful, and there's a lot of introspection there, where
Mm,
what I like and what I really like and what I think needs to be done more is looking in the mirror and looking back at yourself, because
mm,
there is that tendency, and I've seen it amongst colleagues, amongst family, like some kind of the new interns or like apprentices that come in. It's that things should be like this or things should be like this, like why isn't it like this, why isn't it like that? But then it's like, what are you doing yourself to try to make the change? What are you trying to influence amongst in your circle of influence? What are you doing? It's
yeah,
one thing to say that there's issues. There might be issues, fair enough. But if you're not doing anything about it, then do we really have the right to complain? And on the flip side, you've got the power and responsibility to change things. When you start looking at yourself, something, what can I do to be more proactive? What can I do to help myself then those answers came because you built that awareness. You thought, okay, where am I? What can I do? And then you start taking the action. And then through the action, you started learning, you started figuring things out, and then step by step you grew. And it's just literally just look at yourself sometimes and think, rather than just pointing the finger elsewhere, let me just see, what can I do? It's fair enough, sometimes you can't control things, but what can I control? What can I do? And go from there. It's fine. But going into your story again, and one thing, like, I noticed you've acquired the skill of like public speaking. You've done TEDx talks, and you're mastering it, and I'm sure you're learning as you go along. But at the same time, I'm sure in your journey there's been so many little mistakes that you've made that you've kind of learned from. Because somebody might say, okay, I'm doing something and like I've done it all wrong. I've made a mistake. I shouldn't be doing it again. How important is it from the mistakes that you made? How important is learning from the mistakes that you made and building from it? Because surely that, I imagine that must have been a big part of the journey as well.
The whole journey was just mistakes. The journey isn't a journey without mistakes. Nobody just wakes up and does everything right. They only do things right after you've made mistakes. And that's something that I really internalized a few years ago. It's like the only way to succeed is to fail. The only way to move forward is to do things wrong multiple times before you try and figure out that's right. And I think something that people and myself, and I'm still learning this as I go along, one message that I think is really important that we all need to internalize is that when we get hit with a failure, we don't see it as a failure, but we see it as a lesson. It's not a loss, it's a lesson. You know, like kids these days, like, oh, you caught an L, an L. An L seems like such a bad thing. But if you take that L, and rather than being a loss, you turn it into a lesson, and it sounds cliche, but it's so true. Like, if you try, and an exercise I try and do is every time I realize and I become conscious of something that didn't go as to plan, I try and rewrite in one sentence what the lesson was within that. So that then I can add that to my rule book. And the next time I find myself in a similar situation, I don't repeat the same mistake. So along my journey, I mean, I've made so many mistakes, and it's part of it. It's part and parcel of the journey. I mean, I'm sure you've gone through the same, Rahul. I mean, are there any mistakes for you that really stand out, that really taught you something, and what did they teach you?
Where do I start? I think the first mistake I made was fearing stepping out my comfort zone and avoiding opportunities. I've got like a little short snippet about saying yes to opportunities. I was the guy that was saying no. I was the guy that would wait for others to do it and then join them. And then I started to realize, like, for example, there was a youth Umrah trip that came up, and I was waiting for my boys to, at least one or two of them, to sign up because I wanted to be with someone. And I realized they're not doing it. They're saying it, but they're not doing it. And I thought, am I going to miss this opportunity just because I'm going to wait for someone else? Like, how many times am I going to do this? How many times am I going to let a big opportunity like that just go because I'm too scared to say yes to the opportunity and do it myself? So I thought, forget it, I'm signing up. And I signed up straight away. And I don't regret that. That was the best experience I had probably in my life. And that kickstarted my spiritual journey in 2017. But I know before that, I would have been reluctant. I would have been either too shy, too dismissive. I would find reasons not to do it. And that was a big mistake. And only until I started to flip it around and stop finding excuses to not do things and find reasons to do it. And, the saying, I guess, is, forget the risk of action, what's the risk of inaction? What am I missing if I don't do it? And that's like been a big theme of life. Even when I was doing my apprenticeship and it wasn't going so well, it was either, okay, do I just accept that and stay in my current role? Or do I keep pushing and push it till I can kind of change my situation? And if I was that person before, I would have accepted it and I would still be in the same place in Hackney Benefits now right now. Probably fully negative. All negative associations like aligned with me. I probably would have never started this podcast or would be talking to you today. But I just knew, okay, I need to now I might be going out there pressure space, fair enough, but if I don't push, if I don't just try, I'll never know. And it's been a theme of life, even when I'm doing the podcast, even when I see my first video. I wrote a comment on the video and said, look, this is me talking in front of the camera. I look shy as, I am glitchy, I am not perfect, I am not fluent at all, but I'm doing it, I'm putting myself out there. Why? Because I want to show that if I can do it, so can you. So can that young person looking at this thinking, do I have the potential? Someone like me can do it, then why can't you? And then I even said, look, as my videos go along, you'll see me gradually become more confident and more fluent with the stuff. And I think I'm fair to say I have become more fluent with it. And it is literally because I started saying yes to opportunities, and like I mentioned, instead of comfort zone. And it wasn't perfect. Like if I probably have it somewhere, all the takes that went wrong when I was doing that intro video, when I was just like blabbing on, and I'm like, and there's one video I was like that. I was like, this ain't happening, man. This ain't happening.
This is not going to learn.
It took me a long time just to literally do like a couple of minutes of a video, just describing those findings from the survey. And even that, the way I presented that wasn't great, but I wanted to get something out there just so I can advance and push forward. And I've learned so much from it, and I haven't looked back. It's probably things I would change, yeah, but I don't regret it, because you just learn something. And I think your philosophy that you mentioned, it reminds me of my recent post that I did about Gareth Southgate in his leadership style. And hopefully he's coming home, because this is the day of the final, so we don't know what's happening.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But a guy posted a Nelson Mandela quote, and it's something that I've heard before, but it is very much summarizes. I think it goes along the lines of, so I could be paraphrasing it wrong, but it was either I never lose, or it was I always win. No, wait, it was I never lose because I either win or I learn. So whatever setback he faces, whatever goes wrong, he learns from it. So he never loses. There is no L's there. The L's he's taking are life lessons, our learnings. I think when you adopt that principle, and everything I've been doing since is like, if I do this post, what could happen? Let me experiment, because regardless, if it goes wrong, I've learned something, and I can better myself for next time. If it goes right, perfect, I won. There is no losing there. There is no. I mean, what's the worst that can happen? I mean, sure, you could manage the risks a bit. But I think I view a lot of stuff with social media that I do now as like as experiments, and just learn as you go along. Just learn, and the more you learn about yourself, the more you reflect. And I'm sure that this has been your journey. The more you upskill, the more you develop, and the further you go, it's very powerful, isn't it?
Yeah, and the human mind, learns and develops in a few different ways, and one of the main ones is through experience. And the beauty of learning through experience is you kind of need that reflective element afterwards as well. You need to put the mind in a state where it looks upon the things that are happening to them as an opportunity to learn, and not just things that are happening. You need to put the glasses on of what is actually happening here, and what can I learn from the situation. Because a lot of people do mistakes, but they're so engulfed in the mistake that they don't have the ability to step back and say, what can I learn here? All they see it as is this negative thing that's dragging them down, and then they just fall into that blame, cycle where they just say, why me? I can't believe it's me. I can't believe he or she would do this to me. And rather than stepping outside of it and being like, all right, what is there here? What can I actually learn from this? Because I guess they don't realize the potential of their own mind. They aren't using this as an opportunity to input knowledge, because they don't realize that their mind could actually learn from this if only they shifted that perspective. So that is it. The reason why I say it's an important shift to try and get into, is because once you shift into it, like what Nelson Mandela says, you never lose. You never, ever, ever lose. And that's a very powerful way of thinking, because then you'll surround yourself with positive energy. Even in the worst of the worst of the worst situations, you're thinking positive about it. You think, yeah, fine, I got into a car crash, but that's because I didn't do this, or that's because I hadn't checked this. And you learn from it, so the next time you can avoid it from the worst. But somebody who got into a car crash, like, oh my God, I can't believe I do this. Why would they do it? And they start trying to point the finger at somebody. They always lose. They're always in that bubble of negativity. And who wants to live there? It's not a place to live. It's not a way to live. So that one little tiny shift in perspective can unlock so much learning in your life.
And I think it is literally will make you become a winner.
Always.
And anyone listen to this and in that position, become a winner. Be a winner. Like, and your life will change. Like it will go on that trajectory that you're seeking, and you'll find that fulfillment, and things will become very clear to where you want to go.
Mm. And the beauty of it is that it really shows how much of a choice it is. A lot of people be like, oh, but it's not my choice. I've lost. It's like, no, your definition of a loss is making you feel like a loser. But if your definition changes, your whole life changes. There's a quote that I really like, which says, "The thing you are looking at will change if you change the way you look at it." So the situation that you're looking upon will change if you change the way you look at it. That is taking that negative thing that happened to your life. And right, I say negative because that's just the connotation you've associated to it. It's just a situation. It's not a negative or a positive situation. It's just a situation. But you've attached the word negative to it. If you change the way you look at it, then you can redefine what it is. And then that will change, and then that will give you more experience to build upon. And that's how you become a winner. And that's how it is a choice, because it's how you look at it.
Perception is reality, right?
100% perception is. You just summarized what I was trying to say in 2 words, bro. Thanks. Perception is reality.
You're welcome, man.
Yes.
We're here to help each other. I think we've gone into like a deep philosophical dive, and then people might be thinking, okay, when are we going to get into like the
Careers.
actual career stuff? Let's get into it. So just a quick recap. So when you were in college, what did you study in terms of?
I did maths, further maths, physics, and chemistry.
Whew.
People told me choose a fourth subject, something you might enjoy, so I chose further maths. That just shows you how much of a nerd I am. But actually, I really enjoyed further maths. It was one of my favorite subjects.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah,
Yeah.
you're that guy, man. That guy. And let's go to those classes.
Yeah.
And what on earth?
I was never that guy, bro. I was in the bottom set of
Really?
maths in GCSEs. I was bottom
How
set.
did you push yourself up there to do further maths in A level?
I found a friend who was really good at maths. He was in top set, and then Mohammed Musawi. Shout out Mohammed Musawi. He would be with me in the library, teaching me maths, to the point where I kind of got better at maths. But that's how it works. You leverage the sort of people around you.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was never always a smart ass at maths. I wasn't great. I was in bottom set, but then I worked my way up.
Testament to that guy, man. His teaching skills. For that.
Must have been banging. Yeah.
Yeah. Definitely. We'll shout out to him, man. Big
Yeah.
shout out.
Yeah.
And
During my time at college as well, before we move on after college, I also founded an engineering society, and that was a massive turning point. And to anybody who's at college, or to anybody who's going through university, I really want to put a big focus on extracurricular stuff, because that's where you start to build your social skills. And when you hit the world of work, and I'm sure you know this, your social skills are far more paramount than your technical abilities. Because if you don't have that social element to you, it stunts your growth. It really does. So anytime you have an opportunity to do something that's non-technical and can build that social ability in the form of founding a society, joining a society, becoming the secretary, the president, or whatever it is of a society, I urge you, please. It will develop you in ways you didn't even think were possible, and you'll come out of it a completely different person.
definitely take that lesson on board and take that advice, definitely. And was like, so was your mind sort of set back then, like that you wanted to get into the space of like aerospace engineering and working in Heathrow, or did something shape your mind, or something happen that led you to it? What kind of led you to really build this passion about working in like Heathrow Airport?
So what really started off for me is I initially I wanted to be an astronaut. Then I thought, I read a book called here it is actually, let me get it. So there's this book called Chris Hadfield, An Astronaut's Guide to Life on Earth. Really cool book, and he talks about his life as an astronaut, and he became the commander of the International Space Station. And this book made me realize that becoming an astronaut is very long-winded and very difficult. He has a story where he says, I used to come home from NASA and I used to have more homework than my kids did. So I realized that that book gave me a fundamental shift where it's like, don't just look at the subjects you enjoy and then say, oh, what can I get to that? Look at what will the job entail, and build your judgment upon what you studied based upon what the job will entail, because that's what your day to day is going to look like. And with that same philosophy, after I thought about becoming an astronaut, I thought be a pilot. But then I applied the same logic, and I was like, what does a pilot's life entail? And the way my brother-in-law described it to me, which doesn't do it justice at all, but it's like you're a taxi driver for the sky. You know, you go somewhere, you sleep in a hotel, you wake up the next morning, you're back on this autopilot machine, and you just land it. And again, I just thought, mm, I know that doesn't do it justice, but at the time, it was enough to put me off. And I thought, yeah, I'm not on it. But I still loved planes. I loved aviation. I loved looking up into the sky and thinking, wow. And the fact that I was really good at maths, really good at physics, kind of made me sort of combine those two worlds. And I was like, well, I love aviation and I love math and I love physics. And the place where those two intertwine is aerospace engineering. And I just kind of, and before I made that decision, the thing that has helped me solidify it was my brother-in-law used to work for the government, very similar to sort of, I think he was in like an auditing space and he used to audit companies around the country. And he was invited to a company called Marshall Aerospace up in Cambridge. And he had a sort of meeting with the CEO. And Marshall Aerospace has the capabilities to design, build, and fly an aircraft from one facility. So they have the design offices, they have the shop floor where they can manufacture stuff, and they have a runway where they can take off a plane. So unbelievable. It's like the whole aerospace industry squashed into one
It's your
place.
dream.
And he asked the CEO if I can have a tour. And he agreed. So as a 16, 17-year-old, I got a tour of this whole operation from the offices to the shop floor. He took me up to the control tower. And that day I was like, whatever I do in my life, I know that aviation needs to be at the heart of it. Like it just gave me a buzz that I can't describe. That's when I decided I want to study aerospace engineering at university. And that was sort of that one thing that I was continuously curious about. The question that was in the back of my mind always was, how do planes fly? And I really wanted to understand that. And I knew that if I study aerospace engineering, I'll know the answer to that question. I'll be able to understand how a plane flies on like a physical, like thermodynamics, dynamics, aerodynamics level, and be able to do all the maths to back it up as well. So I enjoyed that. I thought that's exactly what I want to do. Um, so yeah, that's how I got into aerospace at university.
That is amazing because I think a lot of people listen to this, like me, probably still at uni thinking, or like probably at uni thinking, I'm still trying to figure out what I want to do. But that it's amazing how that insight that you had, and there's like the powerful insight events, right? That you got to see it and sort of experience it in person and like really take it all in and immerse yourself. You sort of realize from there that this is something I'm curious about and I want to get into. And when you're curious about something and interested in something, then things like when you want to go on to learn stuff, it just becomes much more of a thing. And perhaps even like people following your page on Instagram, which you definitely mention at the end, and TikTok, like you can get that insight as well into places like Heathrow and see what goes on in the different areas, which I like. I'm a big fan of how you like bring it to life into social media and how Heathrow let you do that as well, like because for them it's good in terms of they're getting that kind of outreach and awareness to different audiences. But I can't imagine like please government let's do that. Then nah, mate, can't tell us about this meeting. There's confidentiality and security and all that kind of jargon and bureaucracy. Like, but it's really nice that they let you do it. And I know you mentioned a bit about what it's actually like working in Heathrow and it being a mini city and the different stuff that goes on. Is there anything else that you add to it? And I guess as well, like normally what I tell people to describe is stuff like young people can build a picture of to visualize, but at the same time, I don't think we need to get too into that because you've literally got a whole channel
Page
like
dedicated.
way
Yeah.
better than the way you can like that puts it into like reality, like what goes on.
Yes.
So I want to skip to it and say, if you want to know what it's like working in Heathrow, then I'm going to put your social media details at the bottom.
Handles it. So motivate the airport
Yeah.
guy. That's the way to find me, the airport guy. Now, I'm very grateful that you mentioned the channels off the back of the other point, because I only became conscious of this maybe a few months ago, and I asked myself, why did I even start these channels? And I realized that I was privileged enough to first of all go to Marshall Aerospace, and that helped me make a decision. And that made me realize the power of insight. Now, when I joined Heathrow Airport, something that was continuously going through my mind was, first of all, alhamdulillah, that I even have access to all these things. But second of all, was how can I benefit my community? Like, I'm privileged. I'm so privileged to be in a position where I get to see all these things. And I could just keep them to myself. But if I could put them online, how many lives could I change by putting this stuff online? And hand on heart, I get messages every week of 16, 17, 14-year-old kids going, thank you so much. Like, I now know what I want to do for a career because I've seen your page and I love it. I really want to work at an airport. And I've been able to give these kids the insight that I got, but via the power of social media. Like, if I can't bring you into Heathrow, I can bring Heathrow to you. That's what I like to think of it as. I can't bring you into Heathrow because of security, and getting you past security is the hassle. But what I can do is I can get Heathrow into your lap so that at 3 a.m. when you're bored, you can be scrolling through TikTok and you'll stumble upon a page that just has full of things that hopefully can inspire you. And you know, that's what I mean. I've had people message me going, I've just binge watched all of your TikToks. Like, and I'm like, good, like, you know. And he's like, now I want to be an aerospace engineer as well. I'm like, fantastic, like, nice. That's exactly the whole point of it. I want to inspire you with what I do, and alhamdulillah, I've been able to have the opportunity to do
And
that.
that feeling must be so heartwarming when you see those. Yeah,
It is,
yeah.
and it's even nicer when you get to see them in real life. So during the conference over the weekend, I got to meet a lot of the people who follow me on TikTok and Instagram, and they'd come to me in real life and they'd be like, bro, I've been following you for the past like year and a half. Like, I'm a massive fan. Can we get a picture? And I'm like, what do you mean, bro? I'm just a normal guy, like, you know. And it's what's amazing is that, alhamdulillah, I've been able to have a positive impact. You know, I feel so grateful. I feel so grateful that Allah has given me the opportunity to have a positive impact. And you know, it comes down to the du'as of my parents and you know, my grandparents, and they've always been there to support me and to show me the way. And alhamdulillah, like, you know, it's a blessing. It's a complete blessing, and I'm glad that I've been able to use this opportunity for the good. Could have very easily just kept it to myself. And for the past 40 years at Heathrow Airport, even longer, nobody's done something like this.
Yeah. Um,
Which goes into the point that you had of, I'm glad that Heathrow lets you do this. There's a statement that I used early days, which was, don't ask for permission, ask for
yeah,
forgiveness.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I didn't tell anybody that I was starting this page. I just started to upload stuff. I knew, so I had a few conversations about what is a security threat. I read the social media policy, and as long as I'm not putting information that can be used in a way that could harm the airport, both from a brand perspective and from a from a security perspective, as long as I'm not putting anything malicious out there that can be used in a malicious way, then I have free game. And I was like, let's do this. Let's do this. And it only really caught on recently, where more senior management have been seeing it. There have been a few people who are really against the idea, but I think they're just stuck in their ways. They've been at this place for 40 years and nobody's tried to do something
Yeah.
like this before. But 99.999% of people, including the social media team, absolutely love it.
It's done them a lot of good, man. Like it's had a lot of benefits, I think. And what I love is that you're a normal guy and
Mm.
keeping that authenticity. Like, you know, you're not becoming like some person that's just like all of a sudden untouchable, like doing this. Like you very much started from a place where you didn't have these skills, you didn't have this confidence, and you gradually built it. And you're using what you've gained, the privileges you now have, to give back to the community. That's what it's all about. Like, so you want. That's why, you know, we want to inspire people, so when they get to a certain position, they can give back. And then, you know, you don't. I think a true leader and a true kind of community person is one that just doesn't do it for themselves, but they bring the community with them. So wherever you are, if you can raise the community up to go above and or come to your level, or even above and beyond you, then I think you're doing the job. You're
Exactly.
progressing. You're doing what you're meant to be doing. And especially in our community, we need that. Like, we need people to raise aspirations of our youth. There are tons of issues that
Yes.
there's so many issues and reports about issues, and, you know, talks and webinars about issues. But then when it comes to like the solutions or ways to bring positivity, ways to raise aspirations, ways to do things, there's not as much as that. So seeing stuff like that is a great case and example. And inshallah, I hope it goes well and continues, man. Don't stop. I
Allah.
mean, I'm sure you're not gonna stop because you got
Thank you,
loads of
man.
heartwarming messages already, man. But it's just stuff is like that. It's powerful, man, and we can't understate that. Even when I
Yeah.
see a message, sometimes thinking, is somebody actually listen to my podcast? And then someone said they just helped me find a job. I'm like, that's my okay. I'm continuing. I'm not gonna
Alhamdulillah.
stop.
The beauty of it is as well is very simple to inspire somebody, because sometimes all they need to do is see that it's possible. It's like the 4 minute mile. I think the moment that one person was able to run a sub 4 minute mile, everyone done it. And if you think about Muslims in the aviation industry, I was told that I'll never get a job because nobody had seen a Muslim succeed in the aviation industry. But now that I'm here, I want to show the world that, mate, you can do whatever you want. Don't let anybody's limits be your own limits. So you need to see it to be it. I think that I really agree with that. You need to see somebody who looks like you, who speaks like you, who's from the same ends, who grew up on a council estate just the same way you did, and you need to see them thrive. And when you see that, all of a sudden the bar drops. You think, well, if they can do it, I can do it. And especially if they come up there and they say, listen, I'm a normal person from the ends. There's nothing special about me. I just put my mind to it and I went for it. And I had tawakkul on Allah and I just went for it. And they hear these words and they're like, he's using the same language I use. Like they're the same as me. I can do it as well. That that's one way to spark a fire in someone.
Definitely. And it leads me on nicely to like the next thing I wanted to ask was the importance of Muslims being in these roles. And I think you sort of touched upon it. But even like, as I'm sure you're aware, with the whole sort of tensions that have been going on the last sort of 20 years since 2001.
Yeah.
So like, how do you feel about, Muslims being in these sort of roles? And also like, does this sort of role, like in a more practical question, like sort of suit the lifestyle of a Muslim? Like being able to pray and stuff like that.
Bro, I mean, I use the prayer rooms and the terminals all the time. so
The
so
nice ones as well, aren't they?
from that
Yeah.
practical element, yeah, they're nice, man. They're nice. They got the prayer mats. They got the wudu areas. They're good. Um, so let me jump first in the first question about how sort of the things that happened 20 years ago and how they affected us. I mean, initially they are what made people tell me I'm never going to get a job in the industry. And I guess that's because they felt like we'd probably be secluded from the industry. And there definitely was a backlash. Like I have a friend called Shiraz who was a pilot who sort of who was trying to find a pilot job during the whole, situation where it happened, and nobody was hiring him. He was Pakistani, from Birmingham, and nobody was giving him a second chance. But here's the thing: when I applied to work for one of the airlines earlier in my career for a placement year, the moment I stepped into an interview, the guy looked at my CV. I still remember the guy. He was a sort of Spanish middle-aged white guy, and he looked at my CV. He saw Mohammed, and he was like, "Mohammed." I was like, "Yeah." He was like, "Are you Arab?" As the first question. I hadn't even sat down yet, and he goes, "Are you Arab?" And I was like, I remember in that moment I was so torn because I was like, right now, what do I say? Do I just like try and play it off and be like, nah, 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 there must be a spelling mistake. But my name's Martin. Nah, or like, or do I just own it? And I remember in the moment I was like, yes, I am Arab, and I speak fluent Arabic as well. And wasn't expecting me to hit him back with such confidence. Even though the confidence wasn't there, it was completely facade, but I had to. I was like, yes, I'm Arab and I speak fluent Arabic. And he crumbled when I said that because he thought he had won. And he was like, well, we have business in Dubai. Maybe you could, And I was like, yeah, all right. But then I sort of started out on the right foot, and in the interview, I was able to impress them. And when I was on the job as well, there was always these microaggressions, and it was the typical, Tom, Dick, and Harry from down the road, with the couple pints with the lads type situations, and they'd walk into the room, they'd be like, "Oh, Mohammed, yeah, you're right. The work you did was the bomb, bro. Yeah." And it's like, and it would just be blatant terrorist jokes all day long, and it is soul destroying at the start. It is quite soul destroying at the start, but you kind of get used to it, and then you start. Although you shouldn't get used to it, and I guess now we're talking 5 years ago. Now it's probably a straight to a HR thing, you know. You're not you don't play these games, you don't say these things. By the time there was a bit more complacency, but ever since I've joined Heathrow Airport, I've never seen anything. I've never had that. You might get the people who are sort of bitter deep down. They'll never show it to your face. They'll talk about you behind your back, but they'll never show it to your face. But I'm of the thought that we are here to rewrite the script. I'm here to break all your misconceptions. You think Muslims are X, Y, and Z? I'm here to prove you wrong. And I'll do that, and I'll be very open about my Islamic beliefs and my traditions, to the point where, for example, when I was joining the baggage team, I was in a meeting one day and we were talking about the importance of actually getting the bags through the system and onto the planes. And I remember I was sort of I wanted to say something, and I remember saying to everybody in the room, I was like, in Islam we have something called an amana, and an amana is when somebody gives you something, it is your legal obligation to give it back to them the way they gave it to you. So when thousands of people are handing over their bags to us in our baggage system, I personally approach this as a legal obligation from my Islamic traditions to try and look after their bag, get it onto that plane, and make sure that bag gets there. I look at every single one of these bags as an amana. And there was a few managers that came up to me after the meeting. They were like, "We really like the concept of an amana. Like it becomes like your own personal duty to look after this, and it's not just a job anymore. You approach work with this shift of there's real Islamic elements to this, and I like that. So that was a very sort of a bit of a complex question. I hope I answered a few
That's
things, but
sick.
there is definitely
Yeah.
space at work, at Heathrow, at in the aviation world, to be a Muslim and to be open about it. And we need to rewrite the script. We need more young Muslim people to come to the aviation industry, show them that all the misconceptions are wrong, show them that we're here to do good and we're here to go far. And we can only do that by really bringing that representation to the table, and in unison speak the same message, that we're not what you think the media tells you we are. We're far more than that. We're far better than that. But it will take a while, but the shift is changing, and I hope to be part of that.
And I remember speaking to some I can't remember who it was in one of my previous episodes. It might have been I can't remember who it was exactly, but there was like that point you mentioned, like you being one of the very few Muslims there, but living it, showing them that this is who we are, this is our principles, our values, that we bring goodness and stuff like that. It's like you're unofficially like a representative, you're unofficially giving that dawah. What they're seeing in you is what they're seeing in Islam. Like, and it's that point again that when you, for example, you might hardly ever see, let's say, somebody that's, let's say, Malaysian, for example, and then you might come across someone that is one person, and that person's really great and amazing. Then whenever the topic of Malaysia or Malaysian people come, you naturally associate what you think to that person. So it's kind of same context of work, especially like these people, they do think a lot behind the scenes, and they do like these thoughts do come to their mind. So when you're someone there with your minority or whatever, and you're showing them this is who I am, this is my faith, this is like what it means to me, this is what it represents, and you do it authentically, and you don't kind of like feel the obligation to just really sugarcoat everything and really like pander down to them.
Yeah,
Then
you'll find that a lot though.
yeah.
Sugarcoating.
It's a tough one, but I think end of the day, if you're self-acceptance, right? If you're confident, if you really live your identity as a Muslim, and because you can be Muslim, you can work in the airport, you can be Muslim, you could do this. It's not a Muslim and then I'm a professional. It goes together, and
yeah, I'm a professional Muslim.
Showing that it breaks the barriers. It breaks the barriers, and it breaks the perceptions, and it's invisible, but it's very impactful, and it can't be understated. So anyone that's thinking about it is like, really think, how can I represent the best of Islam? Because this is what people are seeing. My good manners is what's going to leave an impact on these people. The way my ethic, my sort of principles, like be someone that follows my word, trust, honesty, all that stuff. That's what's going to, really change their perceptions and, start somewhere in it, basically.
I hope so. Yeah, and I think we need to be more vocal about our. You know what? Vocal is the wrong word. it's less vocal, more actions, like you said. I was at Arabic school the other day where I was speaking, and this Arabic school hires out like a church to do their Arabic school every Saturday. And there was a quote on the wall that said, "Read the gospel as much as you can, and only if you really need to, use words." It's like if the gospel or the Quran or insert text here, the way you present it to the world isn't words, it's actions. Only if you really need to start using the words. And I think that reflects what you mentioned about showing them who we are, what we are, and but I think it's also important to let them know that you are a Muslim. Let them know that, and I'm proud. I'm proud to be a Muslim. And being a Muslim is what makes me be this way. Let them realize that direct correlation between your akhlaq and the person you are with the fact that you're a Muslim. It's not just, oh, I'm a good person because I'm a good person. No, it's like I'm a good person, and these principles are instilled within me via my religion and via the context of Islam.
And that will break a lot of barriers for the people that come in following you after, because they'll,
Yeah,
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 it does that. Being like one of the few people that are there and the first people that are there. How are you doing for time?
yeah. I'm
That's
good.
cool. Because I know we've mentioned a bit about the different skills that you've built, so I won't go into that. One thing I do want to get into is how the assessment stages, like, and how you found that.
Mm,
And
mm.
give me like an overview of what the assessment stages for like the Heathrow graduate scheme, and how would you advise someone to best
Yeah,
navigate it?
sure. Yeah. So the assessment stages, first of all, Heathrow Airport does complete blind screening. So what they do is they'll ask you 5 questions, and they're situational based questions. So they say you are in a group project. It's due, let's say, in a week's time. You're way behind schedule. You need help. You've asked some people. They've said no. Da, da, da. And they'll put you in a couple of different situations, real life situations. They want to see how you answer them. So that's step one. You also have an opportunity to upload your CV, but they don't really look at that. They look at how you've answered those questions. And what they're looking for is they're looking for the values to shine through. The next stage after that is it's a test. Those numerical judgment tests. The next stage after that is a video interview. A telephone interview. So on the phone, you're having an interview, and again, they're very much situational based. And if you find yourself in a situation like this, what would you do? And that's a theme that you'll find continuously throughout Heathrow is that they won't necessarily ask you to what experiences do you have and stuff like that. It's more about if you're looking for somebody who has potential, it's not about their past experiences because your past experiences don't determine your future potential. It's more about the mindset that you're in. And then the final stage is an assessment center. Now this assessment center is tough. Don't get me like this. When I was there, it was the most mentally challenging assessment center there was, and in its 5 stages, and it's an all-day event. So you go in the morning, and there's 5 different stages. The first stage is a interview. So it's one you, and then you're sat there with a HR manager and a senior manager. And the thing is, you don't realize how senior these people are, but we're talking senior. So you and 2 people who are interviewing you. And in the interview, let me go through the 5 stages first, then I can dive into a little bit about each one. So that's first an interview. The second one is a case study. The case study is where they give you a situation and they give you an hour to write out what you would do in this situation on a 1 week, a 1 day, 1 week, 1 month plan. They want you to create a plan. The next one after that is you have a group interview. As always, again, you have a task at hand. You have 5 people in a room, and for each person who's in the room, there's 2 assessors who are watching you. So there's like 20 people observing, and you're just sat in the middle of this room, and it's quite nerve-wracking. Then there's a presentation where you have to have like a business proposition, and you have 2 people come in, and you have to like propose a business to them. And the last but not least is an actual judgment test, like a mechanical reasoning test to see how good you are with like mechanics. So and that one's very sort of physics orientated. It's like if I push this here, what's going to happen to there? If I pull this pulley and there's all these different things that are happening, is this weight going to go up or is it going to go down? All these sort of things. So that's the 5 different stages. And I guess I can go into a little bit about each one. The interview, very much, again, situational based. What would you do in this situation? What would you do in that situation? And a question that was asked, for example, is your first week in Heathrow Airport, you're walking through the terminal building, and you see somebody climbing up a set of stairs. They haven't put any safety equipment out around them. They've just climbed up. There are people, there are passengers with their bags going right next to the stairs. It's an accident waiting to happen. Your first week into the business, what would you do? And they want to see how you're going to approach that situation. Are you going to come in pointing a finger and blaming somebody? Or are you going to be asking questions and just being like take that coaching stance where you're trying to understand where they're coming from? So there's one interview that's built around stuff like that. The case study I remember at the time was you are um, the operations manager for Terminal 2, and you're just about to launch Terminal 2. It's just about to open, and everything is going wrong. It's like it's to the point where it's like there's so much traffic in the drop-off area. So they'll say, for example, that the scanning machines for the bags don't work, which means that you can't scan bags in, and because you can't scan bags in, there's lots of people that are building up in the departures hall, and because there's so many people in the departures hall, the traffic is coming out through the tunnel and backing up onto the M25, which means that the staff for the check-in desks can't park their car because they're stuck in traffic. And then they say, well, that's happening. And then you also have an electrical fault out on the airfield. And you also have this, and you also have that, and you also have all these problems. And here's all the list of emails that are going flying back and forth. Here's the list of names and the people and their positions and what they do. And literally everything is going wrong. Everything is going wrong. And they want to see what you're going to do about it. And they want, literally, and they want to know your 1 way or your 1 day plan, your 1 week plan, and your 1 month plan in each situation. And they even want you to think about stuff like, I'll contact for example, one of the things that are happening is the BBC is knocking on your door saying, what's going on? We want an interview with one of your managers. How are you going to approach that situation? And then you also
does it relate to anything to do with I can't remember if I read it right, the Heathrow Terminal 5 opening, that being a bit of a disaster?
Probably, yeah. And they want to see in a situation like that, how are you going to react? How do you think? Do you care about the public image, for example? Do you care about the operation? Are you gonna give out some stuff for the people in the terminal as welfare? Are you gonna give out tokens so people can eat, or are you gonna be too bothered just trying to fix the problem and you don't care about people's welfare? Are you gonna think about the staff car park and how you can rearrange the staff car park so that people can like, again, one of the problems was that the staff car park's full. People can't park anywhere. So they can't come in to check in people. And it's like, all right, well, what are you going to do? Well, you're going to encourage car sharing. On a 30-day plan, you're going to say, we encourage people to car share. We're going to put a remote car park, and we're going to put bus services so we can shuttle people through. All these little things that they want you to think about is really, really nice. That hour is stressful. It's intense. They give you all the emails people need to email, and they expect detailed answers. That's the case study. Imagine that's like 1 out of 5 things that you need to do. Then the next one was a group project. Group projects are very similar to all other group projects. One thing I always advise about a group project, and if anyone's listening to this, 2 practical tips. Number 1, always try and be the timekeeper. So as soon as they say go, try and be the person who's got their phone ready going, I'm going to keep the time. Now, the funny thing is that I wanted to do that. And then I saw somebody else who'd already taken their phone out. So I knew what they were trying to do. So the moment they said go, I said, Samir, I see you've already got your phone out. So do you mind keeping the time? So I delegated the task across, because you kind of want to be in a position where you don't need to be, but it helps to show your sort of management skill. If somebody's not talking, always ask for their opinion. That's a massive one. At the moment you realize somebody hasn't spoken for a while, use their name, ask for their opinion. It's small things like that. Listen, when someone has a good point, say that was a really good point. Show that, yeah, so that cohesive teamwork, it really makes you stand out. That was the group project. I know it's long, but I'm trying to give people as much value as I can. The presentation was, you have a space in Terminal 2, and there's 3 things you can do with it. You can either do a market where it's like people selling jewelry and stuff. You can either turn it into a games arcade, or you can turn it into a restaurant. Here are the business propositions for each of those. Here's the revenue, here's the numbers, here's the rest, what the terminal already has in it. All right, here's the demographic of people that are flying out of this terminal. Make a decision about which one you want to do. And then, not only that, then you're going to have to present this to the shareholders. You're gonna have to present this proposition to the shareholders. So two senior managers come in, they walk in, and you have to present why you want to build a restaurant or why you want to build an arcade, and to the point where they want you to have thought it out, like how's the design going to be looking like, why have you chosen it, what's the revenue, what's the numbers, how much investment is it going to. They want you to be thinking about this stuff deeply. Whew. I'm just thinking about it. It's just like so much, there's, but it's
Yeah.
intense. They're looking for the future leaders of their organization, and that's what they're going to put
Yeah.
you through. And the last but not least is the mechanical reasoning exam, where it's like loads of different scenarios. If you write mechanical reasoning exam online, you'll be able to see it. But it's like, for example, you pull this lever that way, and then you do this. How's that going to react? If you want to tighten up this nut and bolt situation, which tool would you rather use? Where can you hold the spanner from so it can become easier? They want you to understand like physics. They just want to make sure that you understand physics, because you're joining an engineering graduate program. They want to know that you have that, at least that little bit of engineering ability to be able to understand situations. But yeah, very intense. Very
How did you feel at the
intense.
end of it? Did you come out in one
Bro,
piece?
I was shattered. I remember still. I could barely drive home, man. I was very tired, but it was so worth it. Like the experience that I've had, the one that I described earlier, about seeing all these different, like I'm literally getting experiences of complete the new industries every few months. Like I've experienced the rail industry, I've experienced the water industry, I've experienced the electrical industry, I've experienced the baggage system industry, I've experienced the terminal facilities management industry, all in one place, and it's an airport. And I love planes, and I get to see planes, and I get to go and I get to sit in the cockpit every once in a while and chat to pilots and all these things, man. Trust me, it's worth it.
Work must be fun, man. That you say, yeah, yeah, alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah.
That's yeah, that having a job like that where you enjoy where you seeing different stuff is definitely that makes it worthwhile. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm now a young person listening to this. I'm 18, thinking of going to university to study engineering or stuff like that. But now I'm thinking,
Mhm.
damn, there's a lot of different stages. What can I do now to try to prepare myself for this, or what resources are there that can kind of at least give me some, let's say competencies, but something that can kind of give me an idea of how to be able to answer this question, but also have some sort of level of competence and confidence to be able to do it. Are
Yeah.
these things that you've covered in your channel, or is this stuff you can get into a little bit now and complement it?
I can talk about this. I can talk about this. So I've done a few YouTube videos about this stuff, about sort of how to approach an interview, how to do this, how to do that, how to land a graduate role. Now, the first thing I'll ask for this 18-year-old is, are you sure you want to go through the whole uni route, or is an apprenticeship the way for you? That's the first thing. Because there's no point going to uni if you want to be a hands-on engineer. We have an apprenticeship route where all the different things that I've described, you get to do that. But rather than doing it from a project management level and a management perspective, you get to be on the ground actually using your hands to solve these problems. And you get to work on shift to really get nitty gritty and get your hands dirty into this sort of stuff. So the same sort of experiences, but from a very much more
I
hands on
imagine the
perspective.
process
That's
is a
step
bit
one.
easier for that, or a bit less intense.
Yeah, yeah, because it's designed for
Yeah.
16-year-olds, it's less intense. Um, but again, they want the best of the best. They want people who think outside the box. And I was involved actually in this year's recruitment drive. So it's very interesting to see what they're looking for, and they're looking for people who have potential. That's the most important thing. They were looking for people who have the right attitude, people who will be proactive, people who will get up and go do things that they don't necessarily have been asked to do, but they want to do it because they enjoy it. So that's the first question. The second question is the second point. If you've decided, yeah, I want to go to uni, I want to get a degree, and then I want to go to join this graduate program, the one thing I would always stress upon is your people skills. If you noticed during that whole assessment center, there was only one bit that was about mechanical reasoning, and this was sort of an exam they give to 16-year-olds just to make sure that they're aware. Yeah, it's the same exam they give to the apprentices. It's just to make sure that you have that cognitive functionality. the most important thing was the people skills, how you react with people. Even if you noticed in the interview, the question they asked me wasn't about the time I solved the technical engineering problem. It was, you're walking through the terminal and somebody's done something wrong. How are you going to tell them that they've done something wrong? These are all people skills. And the one place I always go back to learning about people skills is that book. I've got it here. Hold on. I've always got my library. Drop the mic. Drop the mic.
Well, very conscious. My Mac was on the edge of my my desk, so
Edge of your desk, yeah. So this book, How to Win Friends and Influence People. This book, honestly, I remember being in the interview and like thinking about exact examples from this book and how I could apply them. This book teaches you how to have these sort of difficult conversations. It makes you realize what people are looking for and how people judge you, and then it helps you present yourself as that person who gets far. So this is from a practical, what can I do? Like, what can I actually do right now to put me a step ahead? Read this book, read it once, read it twice, read it 3 times. 6 months later, read it again. You'll pick something up new about it. This book was written in
29. Yeah,
1903,
yeah.
I think.
So back in the
It's something
yeah,
like early
yeah.
90s. It was written early 90s, and the fact is, it's still relevant till this day. There's something in there that 100 years later, this is still relevant. There's something in here, and I was recommended this book when I was 13 years old. I only read it when I was about 20. I wish I had read it when I was 13 because I probably would have gone a lot further. But alhamdulillah,
So
that's the
how
journey.
to win friends and influence people. But Dale Carnegie.
How to
Just
Win Friends,
for
Dale
those that are
Carnegie.
listening, and it's on Audible as well. I've got an Audible actually. I've listened to bits of it. I need to.
Yeah,
I've got a lot to listen to Audible actually. It's very interesting, like the different stuff I've got in there. But definitely,
yeah,
yeah. That's the people skills point.
yeah.
Is there anything else you
People
land there?
skills. Yeah, and then when you're at university, join societies. See if you can become a president of a society during your time, because that'll teach you like the leadership element. When I was in my interview, and I was president of an Islamic society during my time at university. And I remember like I had 6 or 7 people in my committee. I would look for each person's strengths. Like I had one girl who was really creative. I made her the social media manager. I had another girl who was super organized. She was secretary. Another guy who's really good at making friends. He was our PR person. And I assigned these roles based upon their strengths. And these things you won't learn in a degree. And these things make you stand out. These are the things that people are looking for when they're looking for the future leaders of their company. They're looking for people who have gone out of their comfort zone and taken a leadership position during their time at university and been able to hone those people skills. That is the most important thing, because that is what will open up doors for you. People, here's the way to think about it. The way people perceive you depends on what you say. And what you say depends on what's in your mind. And what's in your mind depends on what experiences and what content you've consumed. So what people perceive you as depends on what you've consumed and what experiences you've given yourself. If you want people to perceive you in a positive light, then consume good content, aka read good books, and put yourself in positions where you will get good experiences with the glasses on that I never lose, I always win, because then that's going to feed your mind, and then you're going to start speaking in that positive energy that with those experiences. So it's a loop, it's a cycle. You want people to think you're a good person, you have potential. Feed your mind with things that allow you to articulate that.
And you can see it when I've seen it as well. When I was in my early talent role, which I was super passionate about. When I talk to directors about it, deputy directors, the senior civil servants, they could tell like I was on it. I had a drive for it. I had a passion for it. I had an interest. And I always cared about it. And they didn't really suggest stuff to me. They would ask me questions. What do I think? Because they knew I already know my stuff. Because the experiences I've got, the positivity, the eagerness to grow people, to bring people up, they knew that I was there already. So it was like I'll be the go-to guy for those queries rather than it being me trying to like have to ask them questions. What do they think? It was like, what do you think? Well, what should we do here? Or do you think this will work? And that's everything. Say it rubs off on them. So when they see that in you, that drive, that thing, it is contagious, and they will like think they'll know this person. They know what they're on about. They've got it, that spark. And how can we grow that? I guess
Yeah.
go back to this episode where we talk about self acceptance, stepping out of the comfort zone, doing different things, finding what it is that you're passionate about. The only way you do that is by trying different things. Like my episode 3 with Mohammad Taher, he says, when you go to a buffet, there's a lot of different stuff. You got to try it, and then you find out what you like, what you don't like.
Yeah.
You got to go through the process. Whether that's work experiences, whether that's just shadowing,
Yes.
inside is whatever you can do, step out and do it. And don't be like me, the guy that was finding excuses not to do it. Otherwise, you would delay that journey by a long shot. And the sooner you do it, it's like compounding, and the more you do it, the more early you start, the further you go at a much earlier stage. And it's not to say that if someone starts late, fair enough, that's fine. But if you know this and you're at that young age, what's stopping you? What is stopping you? Go for it.
Yeah. And now that you know it, there's an opportunity here to be really regretful at some point if you don't take action upon it. It's like when I learned about investment early on. I read the book called Rich Dad Poor Dad. You may be familiar with it. When I read it, I realized I was 18 at the time, and I was like, if I don't take action upon this and I end up as that 40-year-old stuck in a job in the rat race, I'm gonna be full of regret. So let's start putting some money aside to invest. But then building upon the point that you mentioned about work experience, the one thing I would advise is think about what the job entails in the day-to-day aspect rather than just what subjects you enjoy. I give the example of a pharmacist who really likes biology and chemistry, so therefore they decided they want to be a pharmacist, not thinking about the fact that a pharmacist, day in, day out, what does that job look like? And do I want that? Yes, you enjoy biology and chemistry, but do you enjoy what a job of a pharmacist will entail? So when you're approaching work experience, think of it from that critical eye of what they're actually doing day in, day out. Another thing I'd say is even if you do a work experience and you walk away from it thinking that was so rubbish, that's a good thing. Because now you know what you don't enjoy. I went to a law firm when I was 16, because I used to think I wanted to be a lawyer because I loved arguing. I loved arguing with people. And I thought, well, if I love arguing with people, then I'm going to have to be a lawyer, right? I realized that I really don't want to be a lawyer. Like lawyer is just all they do, they read documents and I was like, nah, I never want to be a lawyer. That was a really good thing because now I know what I don't want to do. So the more experiences you have, the more you'll understand that landscape of I like this, I don't like this. And the I don't like this is sometimes more valuable than the I like this.
The process of elimination. Absolutely.
Absolutely, yeah.
I was like, I'm just summarizing anything you're saying. Like what?
Bro, honestly, I had to use like a million words, and you're just there like the process.
I think it compliments, man. It compliments.
Yeah,
You're describing it. You're building the real picture of it. Then I'll just do the summary at the end, and they're like, oh, okay, yeah.
You do the executive summary at the end.
It's hand in hand, man. It's all good. But bro, I think we've covered a lot, and I think this is a super valuable episode. And I think again, you've got your channel, so people want to find out more, want to get a real insight. Proper like videos in Heathrow showing the different systems and everything, then Moti is the guy to follow. Motivate.
So MO_T_IVAT.
I'll put in the description. I'll make sure it's all in the description. People say
perfect. Yeah, the TikTok is Motivate Official, but yeah, you put it in the description, bro. I appreciate that.
Now people will find that, and you're also on LinkedIn as well. So for those that are, as I always encourage people to go on LinkedIn to tap into that network, you can find him there as well.
Anyone has any questions, message me on Instagram. I'm most active on Instagram. I try and get to everybody, every single message. So yeah, sometimes there's quite a bit to get through, but I'm always there to help.
Any, I guess I leave it to you now in terms of any final reflections, lessons, or anything you want to share for someone listening to this.
I think the one thing that stands out from this episode is that the relationship with failure. Your relationship with failure will determine a lot of things in your life because failure is inevitable. You will fail, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. So really internalizing that relationship with failure, as failure can sometimes be a good thing, making sure you actually understand that to your core, because you realize that when I failed, it's given me an opportunity to learn something. Once you've internalized that thought process, then you always win. Like you said, you always become a winner. And if you want to become a winner in life, then the first exhibit A is change your relationship with failure. make sure that you think as failure as winning, and then you're one step closer to always being a winner.
Bro, I feel like you've got a voice for an audiobook. I was listening, I'm thinking, wow,
Really?
man, I could listen to this guy's voice. It's like close my eyes and just take it all in. MashaAllah, man. I think that could be another venture, like more wish speaking.
Alhamdulillah. Yeah. I mean, you never know, bro. You never know how the world of content, consumption changes. But I think it's just this microphone, bro. I think it's
Both
just
at the
this
same one as well.
microphone. Shout out Samsung Q2. Hopefully one day they sponsor us.
Inshallah, man, we can dream. But bro, Jazakallah khair, man, for joining. And
Thank you very much, bro. Jazakallah khair for starting this podcast, bro. And you're reshaping the future of our generations, and I appreciate it, man. It's
we're both part of the cause,
inspiring
man.
to see.
You do your part, we try to do my part. And again, people that listen to this,
Alhamdulillah.
remember they've got the potential to go above and beyond what we're trying to do, and change what they want to change.
Yes.
Yeah.
We're stepping stones. We are nothing but stepping stones so that the next generation can go further than we even thought was possible. Like maybe I aim for a director level. The guy who comes next to me aims to be the guy who the CEO has to answer questions to. So that he's not even on the executive panel. He's above the executive panel. Like let's become something so the next generations think that's more than possible. We might have the next Richard Bransons amongst us.
Why not?
And why not? Why not dream big?
But with that, man, I'll close the recording for this episode, man. Assalamu alaikum, man.
Absolutely. Thank you, man. Alaikum assalam.